Hey, hope your day or night's going well. Let's talk about
DUSK.
DUSK is a retro-inspired first-person shooter developed by David Szymanski and published by newblood Interactive. There's been dozens, if not hundreds of 90s-style FPS games over the last couple years, but newblood is known for some of the best. From a medieval to Gloomwood to Ultrakill, these guys know a good shooter when they see one. If you're a fan of retro shooters, then you've already known about newblood for years. But if you're someone that's just now getting into the recent retro shooter boom, let me introduce you to the pinnacle of what this genre has to offer. DUSK is a 90s shooter through and through, with its simple yet satisfying combat all the way down to the little details, starting with how it looks. DUSK is pretty much as old school as it gets in this department. The textures are rough and uneven, giving it that classic 90s look and feel. Enemy and weapon models are extremely basic, giving you only the bare minimum to be able to tell what they are at a glance. Even the startup screen is a throwback. DUSK gives you quite a bit of flexibility too, so you can make it look as new or as old as you like. Performance isn't even worth mentioning. This game is so low spec that one of those $300 calculators you had to buy for high school math could probably run this game well. Sound design is also excellent. Weapons are all extremely satisfying to shoot and provide the kind of audio feedback that you would expect. And the music. It's Andrew Hulshult. What else is there to say? If you don't know who that is, Andrew is pretty much the guy for composing a retro FPS soundtrack. He's most known for his alternate versions of the original Doom soundtrack, but he's also done parts of the soundtrack for both of Doom Eternal's DLCs. He's at the point now where I'm actually surprised when he's not in the credits for a retro FPS. He's that popular. All of this is combined to create the atmosphere of DUSK. It starts out like any other retro FPS with a throwback art style and metal soundtrack. That changes quite quickly though, as DUSK transitions into more of a horror game in the second and third act. Hearing the word horror when talking about a retro FPS might worry some people, but DUSK accomplishes this extremely well. These levels are dark, like really dark. You're given a flashlight at the very start, and you might think it's kinda useless initially, but you will come to rely on it to find your way. The level design is also constantly messing with you, either showing you valuable items just out of reach or completely changing up the layouts in some cases. Then there's the voice that occasionally taunts you, reminding you of the situation that you're in. A lot of retro shooters often tend to blend together because they fail to create a unique atmosphere for themselves, but not here. Let's talk about the story now. Surprising to no one, there's not a whole lot. The SparkNotes version is that you're a guy exploring a town, you get captured by some cultists, kill everyone you see, and find their leader. There's a bit more to it than that, but the story isn't a major aspect of this game at all. It is, however, absolutely filled with little references and nods to other games that it takes inspiration from, like this one enemy that says,
Believer. Heretic.
There's also a bunch of cryptic messages and notes on the wall that you will find to give you bits of information about what's going on as you progress. The ending is especially cool. I won't spoil it, but any fan of old school shooters will really appreciate it. Let's talk about the gameplay next. Like the presentation, DUSK's gameplay is about as retro as it gets. One of the most important aspects of a retro FPS is how it feels to control, and DUSK is as close as you can get to perfect. The movement is incredibly tight in this game. You never feel too heavy or too light when controlling your character. You've also got the iconic strafe jump, which allows you to move around incredibly fast if you're able to do it just right. Let's talk combat next. There's a nice array of weapons to use, including all the staples of this genre. You've got your handguns, shotguns, rocket launcher, and a bunch of others. The rifle is particularly fun to use. The weapons are all extremely simple and easy to use since there's no reloading or weapon mods. You are able to zoom in by right-clicking, and you can spin the weapons around by pressing R. The enemy types are the same. They're all very basic enemies with simple designs and easy to read attack patterns. Maybe a little too simple, actually. The enemy AI is probably the one thing I would criticize DUSK for. The enemies are really dumb and just walk straight towards you regardless of your position. They also get stuck on the environment fairly often. This could be intentional, as that's pretty in line with most 90s shooters, but I do think some smarter enemies would have been nice. Overall though, the combat of DUSK offers a satisfying gameplay experience that's accessible for newcomers and fun to master for hardcore fans of the genre. Let's go over the level design. DUSK's levels feel like they were created by someone with decades of experience in the industry. Every key, switch, and hidden secret is right where they should be, and never leave you wandering around for minutes on end or feeling like it was too obvious. There are 3 acts in total, each containing 11 levels, so 33 in total. Every level is pretty short, depending on if you try to find all the secrets or not. The whole game will take most people around 6 hours to beat, depending on their death count. That might seem short to some people, especially if you're the kind of person to only play a game once and then move on. Games like this, however, are short by design. They're meant to be experienced multiple times. You can try to beat it in a faster time, on a higher difficulty, with zero or all secrets, stuff like that. But let's say that you aren't into that kind of thing. That's totally fine. If you like games like this, you will still absolutely get your money's worth. Dusk also has a pretty decent amount of post-credit content. There's an endless mode, which is exactly what it sounds like. You start with nothing and need to collect all your weapons in order to survive for as long as possible, trying to rack up a high score along the way. It's a fun mode for what it is. It's very simple and the maps are small, but it's a good time. There is only 3 maps to choose from though, which I think is a bit underwhelming. There is also a multiplayer mode, but it seems to be abandoned at this point, so I wasn't able to try that out. I've heard good things though. Maybe get a group of friends together and give it a shot. You're buying this game for the campaign, anything else is a bonus. And that's Dusk. It's really hard to stand out in this genre, given how many games that it contains, but Dusk has secured its spot near the top of my list thanks to its incredibly tight gameplay, soundtrack, and memorable atmosphere. If you're a veteran FPS fan that's been here since the beginning and wants to try something more modern, or a newcomer looking for a good place to start, then look no further than Dusk. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.